So I want to talk about today. What I want to talk about today is, in my opinion, one of the most useless units in game. Um, yeah, you could, for example, say if you look in the armory, you could pick one of the shittiest anti-tank guns in game. Uh, the Polish, the Polish. No, you could pick the Polish just 70mm penetration AT gun. You could do that. You PTRDs are actually useful in game. You you could also choose in the support tab the military police that some nations have, for example, the Russian commissars or the German Feldgendarmerie. Yeah, for example, you have this shitty NKVD squad which prevents your um, which prevents your troops from surrendering um, or falling back, which is not really useful in my opinion, simply because you can prevent your units from surrendering if you, for example, uh, have mm, if you, for example, have normal leaders nearby. They might cost 20 points less, but to be honest, I think they're really worth it because you get an extra veterancy, and in that case they're just 10 points off. In case of the aftercomrade, there these are 15 points off, so this is not really useful. You could say it is one of the tanks. No, because you can actually use them as infantry support. Recon is actually every time useful because it spots things. Its main objective isn't to engage in combat, so even if it's really a shitty unit the German like a 2-in-1 carrier, which also has a mortar and is a mortar recon. Don't ask me how they got to that idea. Don't ask me. You could say it is one of the armored personnel carriers, but they can, as I mentioned, spot things. You can say it's one of the uh, SPVs, but they can actually do some halfly decent infantry support. So what is it, is the question. Well, to say it very simple, what is the actual problem I have with these units? You could also say it's one of the fucking annoying transport trucks which are useless. Well, maybe, but they can still tow things, even if it takes a decent amount of time. All AA guns are halfly useful. So they do their job. You can penetrate stuff with anti-tank, even if it's just light vehicles. Every artillery gun is useful, but there is one thing that is very useless in this game. And that thing is, if I find it, besides the bombers, that thing is besides the bombers, it is, and the Junkers Recon, it is the normal Junkers, your normal typical Junkers. Why? To say it's very simple, the Junkers is very useless, because it costs 80 points. It costs 80 points. It can carry a hell of a lot of guns, of bombs. It thereby can be very useful, but there is a problem, and the problem is its speed. This actually goes 300 kilometers an hour, but this is not very well, because remember, the resilience is bad. So if you're coming, for example, into Russian, into Soviet 37mm gunfire, chances are your Junkers is gonna survive it. Chances are actually very bad. So everything of this stuff can knock out a Junkers pretty easily. Everything in here can do it. Even in my opinion, even if used in enough quantities, the Dushkas can even knock out a Junkers. So a Junkers is, in my opinion, the most useless plane in that game, because it is slow and has bad resilience. The other bombers, the bombers that I just showed you, who are very slow. These guys, they actually have medium resilience, and well, thereby they're in my they're more useful than any Junkers will. They might turn around because the AA fire is too heavy, but they will not, and I repeat that, they will not well, be as problematic as the Junkers to handle, because you can just use Junkers, in my opinion, in a place where you can use Junkers, in my opinion, just in a place where you, for example, are where you know, for example, there is no AA, because it can be caught by anything. It can be caught by every fighter in game, and it is very bad resilience. So it takes a long time to turn around for this thing. If it remember, the agility is bad. It takes a long time to turn around with this thing, and at 255 kilometers an hour under AA fire, chances are that it's not gonna make it out. Very good for your enemy. And this is just, in my opinion, because of that, the most useless unit in game. So YouTube, please fix this. Give them better resilience. Give them, for example, very good resilience. Make them not that stunnable. And yeah, it just doesn't pay off using Junkers, because you know, most of the time this thing dies before it even can drop its payload. And the stupid loops that they are flying, I mean, they are flying not straight into a let me show this to you. Let me show this to you. We are talking about a Junkers 78, and well, let's see how it performs. So it is flying a spiral, and there it runs in on the target. Then it's flying a spiral to get on target, and then it does a very low approach, as you can see, and then it hits the target. it hits its targets. What the plane is doing in game, the plane is in game. Let's say this is your plane. So the plane in game is flying like this and then goes that way and then evacs around here. So this is pretty stupid, to say it simple. So the problem is, if your plane gets stunned, it's not gonna do this evac here. Instead of it is so I mark this red. This doesn't work in the game. So otherwise it will behave like this. It will try to go actually around that way, and this exposes it to, let's try to paint it down. This, no, black is a very bad stuff. Let's make this here. Let's make this a nice little AA platform. So yeah, the chances are I'm not gonna be very good. I'm not gonna be very good at drawing. So yeah, let's just say this is your typical AA, and these are all the bullets it's firing. So if it's gonna make it out, here, it's gonna have a very lower time to fire than if the plane is gonna maneuver here. Then it can shoot from here, and it can shoot, let's say, the plane evacs is out of range here. So this is actually the problem in this game. The problem is actually this plane is flying in at very low speeds, and the AA gun has a lot of time to hit this thing. So this is very high. That is very high, the time to hit these Junkers. So it deals a lot of damage, which results in a loss of HP of the Junkers. So even if the Junkers manages to make it out with undamaged, it's gonna also take a lot of recovery time for the Junkers to come back, which is the problem with this thing. So one way I would propose to fix this is either way getting it a much higher stun resistance, giving it a much lower much higher stun resistance. So letting the stun drop down, or the next idea for myself, and the next idea is get the resilience up. Get the resilience up and the stun down, or the best idea would be increase the maneuverability and speed. So either way, stun or resilience, or speed and agility. So either way, speed and agility, or stun and resilience. So in my opinion, you should do either way one of these things, because giving it both of these things would make it overpowered. But let's look, for example, at a fighter bomber. Fighter bombers are much more handy to use because they are actually very fast. this, for example, with a good payload makes at least 400 kilometers an hour, which is pretty good. So it takes half the time to evac. It has the same agility as the Junkers, but it's not gonna take it as much time staying in the damage zone as the Junkers would. And this is actually the problem of this game. Where the Junkers is dropping the bomb is a problem. Or is problem number 1. Problem number 2 is the damage the Junkers takes. And problem number 3 is the stun. So you have to do some things to fix it. Make it faster, or make it faster at least. Or, well, you could be a Eugen and leave everything as it is, letting the player be annoyed by the Junkers, letting the player be annoyed because he just has shitty Junkers and can't use them. This is why I wouldn't recommend using a Junkers in the first place, because a Junkers is gonna go down pretty quickly and is gonna die pretty quickly. This can take some stun damage. This has very good resilience, which makes it very survivable for its speed. But it's gonna take a lot of stun damage also, which will also make this problem, will also lead to the same problem as the Junkers has, in my opinion. So yeah, that's problem number 1. And problem number 2 is, in my opinion, that this thing should also be a bit faster. So yeah, this thing is fast enough. Make it like 300 kilometers an hour and it will be useful. Not 220. I know 1000 kilogram bombs are very dangerous and can do a lot of damage, but is it really justified? Is it really justified to do this? Is it really justified? Because the A20C Boston can fly very fast, and it has 1000 kilogram bomb. So this is basically not the problem. Though this would actually be just fair, in my opinion, that this is that way. So yeah, that's in my opinion the problem. For example, the IL-4 can also, with a good speed, carry 1000 kilogram bomb, and it's very good, and it has very good resilience, and it's faster than the Junkers. This might not be historically accurate, but it would make the game more balanced than the Junkers. And this is all I want: a balanced game which makes fun to play, which is very fun to play. Not the problem, not having problems with this game because players because this game is unbalanced. So yeah, we should decide. So I think Eugen should, for example, get a I think Eugen should make, for example, Eugen should take in more feedback from the community. I mean, they realize problems and say, well, we have to certainly to fix this, and I totally understand their point in that. But they're just fixing the worst problems. They're fixing bugs, they're fixing monetary balance issues, and this is the main problem. Monetary balance issues don't